So Keir Starmer's decision to mandate the screening of the Netflix drama Adolescence in schools is raising eyebrows across the country, with over 1,500 teachers and parents signing a letter opposing the plan. Hello, I'm Adam Cherry and this is GBN Originals. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I actually really like Adolescence. Watched the whole thing, binged the whole thing, really enjoyed it as a piece of fiction. And what should be a serious discussion about misogyny, online radicalization, youth violence, all that is now turning into a case study of how political leaders can be totally seduced by pop culture trends. It's like a wave washes over the zeitgeist and they have no choice whatsoever but to follow it instinctively. So the Prime Minister's move feels less like thoughtful policymaking and more like a misguided attempt just to appear in touch with societal issues and look like he's, watched the latest Netflix series like everyone else and isn't he cool? This is fiction. It's not real. Let's just discuss a little bit about the show. Not really spoilers, but if you haven't watched it, I'm going to talk a little bit about the plot, so you've been warned. It's a 4-part series, Adolescence, and it follows Jamie Miller, a 13-year-old boy who murders his classmate Katie after being radicalized online. As I said, it is really good television. It's gripping. It's fantastic. Fantastic performances, great cast, the production. It's all fantastic. It's all shot in one continuous take. It's really impressive. And it captures the chaos, I suppose, of modern adolescence and growing up and the devastating consequences of online influences and things which we don't necessarily see, but children do. It's fiction. It's not real. It's a creative work designed to entertain and, yes, provoke some thinking and some difficult conversations, perhaps, but it's not there to serve as an educational resource or a blueprint for understanding teenage boys. Again, it is not real. So Starmer's decision to screen this drama in schools nationwide is a bit weird. It's baffling. And it raises a question. Why is the Prime Minister allowing himself to be driven by pop culture, albeit very well-written pop culture, over evidence-based solutions? It was like no one was talking about this at all until Stephen Graham decided to write a series about it. It's not just bad policy making. It sets a bit of a dangerous precedent where entertainment seems to dictate education policy just because it's popular. Now, one of the most glaring issues with this plan is the assumption that adolescence somehow represents a universal truth about teenage boys. Now, Antoinette Key, she's an English teacher and mother of 2 teenage sons. She's written about this and she's been pretty vocal in her criticism. As a piece of fiction, she says, it's very good, but as the mother of white British teenage boys, I am very against the idea that it taps into some sort of universal experience of white British teenage boys. She goes on to say, I live and work with them and can tell you that it simply is not the case. Now, King's critique highlights how reductive I think this approach, Starmer's approach, is. So by mandating this drama be shown in schools, he's sort of perpetuating this stereotype about young boys, which will be seen and viewed by young boys in the classroom. It paints them as all aggressors or victims of online radicalization. That's not inaccurate. It could also be damaging. Oh, by the way, let's take a step back here a second. Whatever the merits of this show are, don't you think it's possible that the kids in class will just see this as a bit of an excuse to skive? We've already had a couple of years of disruption from the pandemic, and now it seems it's okay to show 4 hours of Netflix television, and that's a substitute for teaching? Really? It's a fictional narrative, and it's inherently subjective. It might be really good, it might be performed very well, but it is not real. I keep saying the same thing because it's true. We have to remember this. It has artistic choices in it, not objective truth. And using this as an educational tool without proper context, I think risks oversimplifying pretty complex social issues. It's not as simple as watch Adolescence, Andrew Tate very bad, and then suddenly, we've solved educational problems forever. Obviously not.
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Saily using the link in the description below, and if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us.
And another major concern raised by educators is about how Adolescence portrays schools themselves. So again, spoiler alert, the series depicts certain teachers as pretty incompetent, powerless, not able to control the classroom. In fact, the irony of all this is there's a scene in the show which basically depicts one teacher as being useless and unable to control the classroom because he wants to show a TV show on the screen for an hour and do that in lieu of teaching, which is now what we're doing with the show anyway. But regardless, Antoinette Keane goes on to argue that showing this drama in classrooms undermines the authority of real life teachers. If you show this in a school, you're saying we are powerless, which is what I'm trying to say with that scene showing the teacher not controlling the classroom at all. The portrayal the portrayal is not only unfair, but it's counterproductive, right? So teachers already face challenges in managing classrooms and addressing topics like violence within the classroom. So introducing a drama that paints teachers as ineffective probably isn't a particularly useful tool for educating kids, particularly teenagers, and it risks eroding trust between students and educators. Now, psychologist Dr. Jessica Taylor is also voicing strong opposition to the plan, warning that screening adolescents in schools could re-traumatize vulnerable students. The show depicts graphic depictions of violence and abuse, scenes that she argues could trigger painful memories for children who have experienced similar issues. Okay, I mean, fine, but I do think in that scenario, I think it's probably better just to say this series will contain some pretty mature themes, and maybe the parents make the decision to take their child out of the classroom in that scenario. So it's worth bearing in mind nonetheless. Anyway, Taylor says, for the last 15 years, I've delivered workshops on violence, on pornography, peer-on-peer abuse, and I've learned that there will be children who are triggered, children who are switched off, or crucially, children who are mocking it. That's the point I was making earlier, actually. I see a scenario where this is seen as 4 hours of skiving rather than either 4 hours of learning anything or even being traumatized by it. I think that's the most compelling argument out of all of this. Anyway, these reactions aren't just disruptive, they can cause lasting harm to students who are already struggling. That's what Taylor says. And she goes on to point out that teachers lack the training needed to handle sensitive issues effectively in these discussions. She says teachers are not specialists in male violence or abuse, and expecting them to facilitate discussions on this rather than, say, maths or science without proper support is irresponsible. I suppose she has a point there. I think actually the most damaging critique of Starmer's plan is really that it lacks any evidence-based reasoning. It's, a surprising departure from his reputation, or self-perpetuated reputation perhaps, of being an analytical leader who weighs up the evidence, particularly in his time at the Crown Prosecution Service. But it's worth noting that while Starmer was once known for that sort of rigorous approach, this has just happened on a whim. The Adolescence only came out, a month ago? And now suddenly, after one roundtable with the creator, it's being screened in every secondary school across the country. It's quite remarkable. By the way, it's fantastic free advertising for Netflix. I bet they can't believe their luck. This is the sort of publicity you cannot buy. Every child in the country is at some point going to watch this series. Fantastic for the careers of the actors, I suppose. They're about to be the most famous people in the world. Anyway, educational materials typically undergo extensive vetting processes to ensure they're age appropriate and they're effective and useful. But here, none of that really appears to have happened. It's all been bypassed entirely. It sort of feels like I said, it feels like jumping on a bandwagon. The bandwagon of adolescence's popularity without considering its suitability or whether this is actually a gigantic waste of time. Basically, it feels like pandering. So anyway, Starmer's decision is raising broader concerns about how popular culture influences government. Are we entering an era where streaming platforms like Netflix basically dictate public policy? Certainly seems to have happened here. And if so, what does that really mean for the future of policymaking? Critics argue that this is setting a dangerous precedent where entertainment becomes indistinguishable from education or governance. And as one observer noted, what sells on Netflix is not what should be used in an educational setting. Also, by the way, I've noticed some commentators saying that it's unthinkable that Kemi Badenoch hasn't watched this. Again, I'll say it for the 437th time. It is not real. This is made up. It might be good television, but Steve Reed is the food secretary. Does he need to watch MasterChef? Does the science and technology secretary, Peter Carr, does he need to watch The Terminator? This is ridiculous. It's not real. It's not, all right, I've said that enough. Anyway, another troubling aspect of this is how it seems to sideline parents from the conversation about misogyny and about online dangers and so on. Surely that's where most of this should be happening. It's not the responsibility of the state to do all the talking on this. Okay, you could argue that by playing this in schools, kids come home and chat about it with their parents. Maybe. But then parents might feel actually less compelled to even address the issue in the first place if it's all been done by Stephen Graham and a 13-year-old child actor. Anyway, parents should play a crucial role in shaping their children's values and behaviours. Any effective strategy for addressing youth violence or online radicalisation is going to need to involve families, not just schools and not just Netflix. So the backlash against this, I think, demonstrates the need for a more thoughtful approach to addressing these issues. This all needs to be evidence-based rather than just jumping on a bandwagon. Teachers should really have a better understanding of these issues if they don't already. You know, it's not up to Netflix dramas to lead the way on this. It's teachers, and crucially, like I said earlier, it needs to be parents. Parents should be actively involved in these discussions. It should all begin at home. This stuff shouldn't necessarily begin in the classroom. And let's focus on facts here, right? So policymakers need to rely on factual data rather than fictional narratives when crafting solutions, this sort of thing. Anyway, Keir Starmer's decision to screen Adolescence in schools, ultimately, it might be, in fact, I'm sure it is well-intentioned. And like I said, it's a good show, but it reflects odd and arguably poor judgment, certainly misplaced judgment, misplaced priorities. And by allowing pop culture to dictate policy like this so quickly, feels like we're slightly oversimplifying complex issues and at the same time alienating educators, parents, students. They all need to be involved in this, not just Netflix, right? Anyway, if anything, this controversy serves as a bit of a reminder that political leaders should resist the temptation to jump on the bandwagon and chase trending topics at the expense of thoughtful government. We elected you. We elected the MPs. You should be the ones making these decisions, not Stephen Graham, not the Netflix board of directors. Let's stop subcontracting policymaking to entertainment companies. Let's get real here. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam Cherry. Don't forget to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel for more.